Good evening and welcome to India Ascents, the final episode of 2024. This year, India has proven that it is not just a rising power, it's an ascendant force on the global stage. In what is the largest electoral exercise in history, India's democracy has set a new precedent. At a time when several European nations are struggling with their democratic frameworks. 2024 saw Sri Lanka and the Maldives return to India's orbit, while New Delhi's strategic maneuvering in the Gulf Cooperation Council makes it a stronger player. This was also the year when India stands alone as the only major power with communication lines with both Russian president and the Ukrainian president. And there's more. Milestones in defense, a surging economy poised to become the world's fourth largest by 2025, and extraordinary feats in sports from Gukesh's rise to cricket's T20 glory. Tonight, we take you through India's top 10 triumphs in 2024, its ascent. And what better to begin but with underlining the world's biggest democratic exercise. That's correct. India set a staggering record this year, one that no democracy on earth has ever matched before. As the world watched, we pulled off the biggest electoral exercise in human history. 642 million voters cast their votes across 1 million polling stations. That's almost 2 times America's total population, infants and senior citizens included. The process involved 15 million people, 400,000 vehicles, 1,700 air sorties, 135 trains across the country. But this wasn't just an election, but a moment that reaffirmed India's position as the world's largest democracy. As the polling stations buzzed with energy from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from digital voting assistance for the elderly to cutting-edge biometric verification, India blended the age-old practice of democracy with futuristic innovation. The sheer scale of this electoral feat has shown that India's commitment to democracy is rock solid. It's not just a formality, but a living, breathing force. And as Indians renewed their commitment to their democratic ideals, European nations are witnessing protests, movements challenging their present political frameworks. Romania, Serbia, Georgia, Belarus, small European nations struggling to create democratic institutions that India has successfully mastered and continues to strengthen. At a time of increasing uncertainty, one of the rocks holding South Asia together has been India. And nothing explains this more than its Sri Lanka and Maldives strategy. Both countries that had drifted towards the dragon, but India as the big brother offered concessional loans as the two countries faced dire economic consequences. Loans with no TNCs, unlike the Chinese assistance, something that brought these countries back into the gambit, explaining and highlighting India's strategic calculations and big gambles it bet on. Take a look at this report. In a dramatic geopolitical shift in 2024, 2 Southeast Asian nations have decisively recalibrated their relationships with New Delhi. Even as India ensured normalcy with China on its own terms. The disengagement and de-escalation between India and China followed after 4 years of a standoff initiated by China at the Galwan Valley. The 2 Asian neighbors have finally decided to pursue border resolution as per the 2005 pact, a huge climb down for China and a huge win for India's sustained and consistent China policy. 2024 saw New Delhi also bring back both Sri Lanka and the Maldives back in its orbit. Sri Lankan President Anurakumara Dissanayake has assured India's Prime Minister Modi it will not allow its territory to be used in ways that harms India's security interests. This promise is a direct response to the growing power play in the Indian Ocean, which comes as smaller nations in the region face greater economic uncertainty. President Mohammad Muizzu of Maldives, facing mounting economic challenges, has come to a hard but wise realization. When the tides are high, there's no substitute for a trusted ally. After his failed bid to strengthen ties with China earlier this year, Muizzu has reset relations with India. And Mali has recognized the economic and strategic balance of power in the Indian Ocean, hinges on New Delhi's influence. And what followed are new defense pacts, economic cooperation and infrastructure projects on the table. In 2024, this shift is a stark reminder that in the face of mounting global challenges, India is emerging as the cornerstone of stability in its neighborhood, and a growing counter and a pivot to China's dominance. One of the most strategic wins for India has been its focus and continuous engagement of the Gulf cooperation countries. And for years, Indian diplomacy viewed the entire Middle East through the prism of its Pakistan policy, a handicap that doesn't exist anymore. In fact, it was India's internal matter and its Kashmir policy that was once a discussion point for GCC nations. But now that isn't the case. They want to engage with New Delhi because they want to be part of the India story. The India-GCC trade stands at $185 billion, expected to cross $200 billion next year. India-Gulf trade forms 15.8% of India's total trade, much more than India's trade with the European Union, which stands at just over 11.5%. Add to it the 8.8 million Indians who reside in the Gulf region and are a key aspect of India's engagement with this entire region. The impetus on deepening political relations, creating greater investment opportunities, closer defense relationships and more security cooperation will ensure that India continues to navigate the uncertainty in the region effectively, because they have in fact compounded due to the wars and the recent toppling of the Assad government in Syria, forcing India to double down on its GCC strategy that has been a major success this year. India Ascent has been your one-stop destination for global voices, perspectives, and big thinkers from across the spectrum. Big politicians, big thinkers, big foreign policy experts all spoke on India Ascent. Some of those highlights for you. As we speak, there is enough and more that's happening as far as the US-India partnership is concerned. It's evolved, it's seen a huge amount of change and transformation since the Clinton and Bush era. How do you view it now in the backdrop of Modi 3.0 coming to power?
And if you look at the Trump administration, one area where there was enormous continuity was on India. And in fact, Trump liked the fact that Modi was as popular as he was, particularly with Indians abroad. And so really the United States has made a strategic decision over the last 20 years to move closer to India and to try to make India part of the new Asian security system, naturally, largely in response to the rise of China.
Mr. Hamza, we are talking because India sees itself to play a significant role in this region, in the Middle East, in West Asia. It's not just about trade, it's about a larger role that India envisages for itself. And for that, IMEC is extremely important. I want to ask you, what are your thoughts when it comes to the India-Middle East corridor, its significance for the region and for the India-Saudi Arabia relationship as well?
IMEC is extremely important from a number of aspects. It stands for India, Middle East, Europe corridor, and it aims to connect India, Saudi Arabia, and Europe in, I think, three main areas. One is data and data cables. We're already quite active in that regard, and there's a number of projects connecting Europe with the kingdom for high bandwidth subsea cables, and I expect that those cables will continue eastward and connect to India as well. So that's number one priority, especially with the AI revolution that's going on these days. The second area is logistics, and that's connecting India with Europe through Saudi Arabia, possibly through a rail network, which will shorten the transport time between India and Europe significantly. I think something like 12 days, but that's very important. And finally, we're connecting East and West with energy through subsea power cables.
What do you think Southeast Asia gets right that the world needs to follow? Only recently, Sri Lanka got Harini Amarasuriya as its new Prime Minister.
I'm always very happy when I hear that there is a woman advancing into leadership position and also bringing up more women with her or in her team or just as an encouragement. You know, what I think is critical is that we don't leave it at those one single woman that we then basically can say in less than 2 minutes all the names of all the prime ministers, presidents that are women around the world. Last week in the UN General Assembly Hall, there was the high-level meeting, and less than 10% of the speakers representing their countries were women. So what does Southeast Asia get right? Well, they might embrace diversity in decision-making already stronger. I don't know. I'm not the expert on it. You don't know much better. But I think what is critical is that we make this complete normality, that it doesn't really make a headline anymore, that people don't get excited that there is a woman, but that it's just normal.
What do you think should be India's moves going forward, directions in Asia and in its neighborhood in the next couple of years that could define its position in the Indian subcontinent?
Well, I'm extremely optimistic for India. You know, there are 193 countries in the world. It's actually quite surprising that the list of countries the number of countries out of 193 countries for which you can feel strongly optimistic for is not very great. But India is on top of the list of countries that you can feel optimistic for. And India's growth is just beginning.
As 2024 draws to a close, one thing is abundantly clear. India is now a key geopolitical powerhouse. We've charted a unique course even through the turbulence of the Russia-Ukraine war. While the world's major powers have taken sides, New Delhi has tactfully positioned itself as the diplomatic bridge in a polarized global landscape. Prime Minister Modi became the first global leader and remains so to meet with both Vladimir Putin and Zelensky, a move that underscores India's balancing act. New Delhi has reaffirmed its commitment to its traditional alliances with Russia while simultaneously reaching out to Ukraine, advocating for dialogue, peace and sovereignty. Our diplomatic tightrope walk has paid off. The possibility of back-channel talks or the prospect of both sides coming together on the negotiating table rests on India's ability to act as an effective messenger, proving that it could very well be the architect of diplomacy in one of the world's most volatile crises. A reminder that in geopolitics, as in life, sometimes it's not about picking a side. It's about playing the long game that New Delhi knows well. We're slipping into a very short break. We come back with stories about India's ascent in economy, business, sports and cinema. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching India Ascent special show where we are talking about the top 10 instances of India's ascent in 2024. From importer to exporter, India's defense manufacturing has indeed come a long way. From BrahMos missiles that are now being exported to Philippines to its air defense systems that is being sold to Armenia, Indian defense products are now making a big mark, with indigenous defense production at record high levels. Defense exports are indeed at record high levels, with 2024 marking the dawn of India's era as a global defense leader. This report tells you why 2025 brings with it even greater prospects.
In 2024, India's defense revolution is no longer a dream, it's a blazing reality. From the ashes of empty arsenals to a roaring machine of self-reliance, India's Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India defense manufacturing journey has redefined the rules of the game. New Delhi's defense production has exploded to 1.27 lakh crore in 23-24, registering a 32.5% growth from the previous year. The 2025 target is 1.75 lakh crore, a 38% growth target, something that looks achievable now. The 21,000 crore Tata Airbus partnership is fueling the production of the C-295 transport aircraft, set to make India the world's largest fleet by 2031. The deal with Russia to produce 6 lakh Kalashnikov AK-203 rifles in Amethi in Uttar Pradesh is the second big inflection point. With each of these groundbreaking deals, India is inching closer to its goal of indigenous defense production. The successful launch of Agni-5 MIRV missile is testimony to what lies ahead in its arsenal.
India's ascent is incomplete unless we talk about its economy, which is currently the world's 5th largest, set to become the world's 4th largest next year, as per the International Monetary Fund. Indian economy is set to surpass Japan, and most experts concur that the disappointing second quarter GDP numbers is an aberration, as the long-term India story remains intact. India's small and micro industries that account for over 45% of GDP have recovered. There is an improvement in the number of salaried employment figures. Female labour force participation has gone up from 34.5% in 2018 to just under 40% in 2024. India's services surplus as a percentage of GDP has hit a new high. And in November, India's services trade exports surpassed goods exports, which augurs well for India and its software industry. As India continues to be the economic powerhouse, policymakers must now focus on 3 key areas: dipping savings, sliding credit growth, and falling private investments. Arresting these 3 trends will ensure that 2025 will bring with it even greater highs for the Indian economy. And well, if you thought India has set new benchmarks in geopolitics and economy alone this year, well, you've got to think again. From Gukesh's brilliance to Neeraj's golden throw, from Manu Bhakar's Olympic feats to India's T20 triumph, 2024 has proven that India is no longer just a contender, it's now a champion in the world of sports. A year where India ascended to the top, rewriting the rule book of athletic greatness. This report highlights all that India achieved this year in the world of sports.
From the cricket pitch to the Olympic podium, India's athletes have proven that hard work and passion are a winning combination. Gukesh, the young chess prodigy, made history by becoming one of the world's youngest grandmasters, checkmating his way to global recognition. His rise, along with other prodigies, shows India is set to end Russian dominance in the game. On the cricket field, India's T20 World Cup win was nothing short of electrifying, clinching their second T20 title, reaffirming India's place as a cricketing superpower. Manu Bhakar's heroics in the Tokyo Olympics proved that India's shooters are on target to take aim at the global stage. And then there's Neeraj Chopra, who threw himself into the history books by becoming a global athletic icon as he bagged the silver medal in this year's Tokyo Olympics. The revival of Indian hockey is the icing on the cake. The Indian hockey team showed a remarkable gold medal performance at the Asian Games, reminding the world that India's legacy in this sport is very much alive.
In the world of cinema, India's film industry has taken the world by storm, and All We Imagine as Light is leading the charge, proving that Indian cinema is not just a local treasure, it's a global phenomena. This special report decodes just that for you. In 2024, India's film industry has made its mark on the global stage, and All We Imagine as Light is leading the way. A film that's resonated worldwide, proving that Indian cinema is no longer just a regional treasure. It now has a global appeal. Former US President Barack Obama has even named it his top film of the year. The film's success across global awards circuits is a clear sign that India's cinematic influence is only growing and possibly here to stay. From Cannes to Hollywood, critics are now taking notice as the once niche world of Indian cinema moves to the forefront. All We Imagine as Light is a reflection of a new Indian era in storytelling where themes are universal and borders fade away. India's cinematic impact is undeniable and the world is paying attention. This is a new chapter in global cinema, one where the light of Indian film shines brighter than ever before. As we close the curtain on 2024, India Ascents has shown the world that India is not just a rising power, it's an unstoppable force. And as it now becomes a leader in all aspects, there's clamour growing for India to be on the UN Security Council. Nations like the UK are now being termed as has-beens, even as they continue to remain on the P5. The India story is bigger than just P5, and its ascent is just starting. My young team and I thank you for being part of our first year. But remember, our journey has just started, and as India ascends, the game has only just begun. See you on the other side. Wish you a very happy New Year, viewers.